Welcome to Seeing Through Critical Lenses. Think of the humanities as a giant sunglasses shop for the mind. Each pair helps us see culture, art, history, and even life itself in new ways. Today, we're going to try on a few lenses and see why the humanities are the best gym around for building empathy, awareness, and critical thinking. Picture this: a student juggling two jobs, classes, and family responsibilities. They share their struggles, and another student shrugs, "Just manage your time better." That shrug is the empathy gap, when we can't see the world through someone else's experience. And here's where the humanities come in. Literature, art, history, they give us practice stepping into shoes we don't wear ourselves. The empathy gap is like having emotional blind spots. We think we'll act rationally when stressed, but in reality, we react with feelings first. And we're often clueless about what others feel, especially if their world looks nothing like ours. The humanities push us past those blind spots, reminding us that every voice, every perspective has a story worth hearing. Stronger empathy toward people like us, weaker empathy toward those who seem different. We also see compassion fade. One person's story moves us more than a statistic about millions. But this is exactly why we need the humanities. They take abstract numbers and turn them into human stories. They remind us of the faces behind the data. When empathy fades, society loses its glue. Without it, civic life becomes transactional, polarized, and cold. The humanities matter here because they teach us to practice perspective taking through novels, art, history, and philosophy. They remind us that connection is a skill, not an accident. Critical lenses are the humanities in action. Each lens highlights a different layer of human experience: gender, race, class, psychology, history. They help us slow down and ask, what do I see? What does it mean? Why does it matter? In short, they're the tools that turn culture from entertainment into enlightenment. Stories are both mirrors and windows. Mirrors reflect your identity, your community, your lived experience. Windows let you peek into someone else's world. The humanities are where we practice balancing both, seeing ourselves clearly while also learning to value and respect lives unlike our own. Here's the thing. Critical lenses aren't just academic tools, they're life tools. They help us build what sociologists call social capital, which is basically the relationship currency that holds communities together. Think about it this way. Bonding social capital is when lenses help us connect with people like ourselves. For example, maybe you read a novel about being a first-generation college student, and it feels like someone finally put your story into words. That's a mirror moment. You feel validated and understood. Bridging social capital is when lenses stretch us to reach across differences. Maybe you watch a film about refugees, and while you've never lived that experience, the story opens a window and makes you pause. Wow, I never thought about what that would be like. That bridge expands your empathy and your worldview. Linking social capital is when lenses help us navigate power. Imagine looking at a workplace drama through a Marxist or gender lens. You suddenly see how hierarchies or biases are baked into the system, and you start thinking about how to make things more equitable. That's why the humanities matter. They sharpen our empathy, deepen our critical thinking, and push us to stop being passive consumers of stories and culture. Instead, we become active interpreters, people who don't just scroll, but stop, reflect, and ask, what does this mean for me and for us? Descriptive lenses are the just the facts lenses. They start with what's observable: colors, shapes, settings, words. Like a detective looking at the scene before solving the case, it's surface level, but it lays the foundation for deeper analysis. The humanities teach us the power of noticing. Interpretive lenses say, okay, we see the surface, but what does it mean? This is where themes, motives, and hidden ideas come out. Feminist, race, psychological lenses. These are the ones that peel back the layers, like the world's most intellectual onion. The humanities thrive here, helping us interpret the why behind human behavior and culture. Evaluative lenses take it one step further. Judgment. They ask, is this valuable? Why does it matter? How does it impact culture or society? This is where the humanities give us permission not just to consume culture, but to critique it, holding a mirror up to power, values, and meaning. We all have default lenses, perspectives shaped by our background, identity, and values. The humanities help us recognize those defaults and also stretch beyond them. Because real growth happens when we dare to see from a new angle, even when it challenges what feels safe. It's not always easy. New perspectives can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. But that's the humanities doing their best work, making us wrestle with tough truths, confront blind spots, and expand our understanding. Discomfort isn't failure, it's progress. How do we actually do this? Easy. Define the lens, ask questions, apply it to the artifact, and reflect. This is the humanities in practice, turning passive encounters into critical engagement. It's less about answers and more about seeing more clearly. Let's take this into the real world. Imagine walking into a tech company's headquarters. The executives sit in large corner offices with big windows and designer furniture, while everyone else is crammed into an open plan space where desks barely have dividers. Even before anyone says a word, the layout is already telling a story about who matters most. Now, if we put on a space place lens, we notice how the physical environment reflects power. The bigger the office, the higher the position. Status and authority are literally built into the walls. Through a Marxist lens, those differences in space aren't just about comfort. They reveal deeper hierarchies. Who has privacy? Who has control over their work environment? Who doesn't? These material details quietly reinforce who has decision-making power and who doesn't. Finally, if we put on a gender lens, we might ask, how does this setup affect different groups of people? Research shows that women and men often experience open-plan offices differently. Women may face more interruptions or feel less comfortable in spaces without privacy, which can reinforce inequities in ways that go unnoticed until we deliberately ask the question. This is where the humanities step in. They teach us to read culture, not just books and films, but workplaces and everyday life. They remind us that power, identity, and belonging aren't abstract ideas. They're built into the spaces we walk through every day. At the end of the day, critical lenses are humanities lenses. They help us see more, think deeper, and connect better. With texts, with culture, and with each other. Without the humanities, we lose our practice field for empathy. And without empathy? Well, society starts to look pretty bleak. The humanities keep us human.